please do note is that in the US, people also value owning their own house. That's the same narrative also here in the Philippines. But in China, that figure is about 89.68%. So what happens in the Chinese real estate market doesn't just affect the developers, but it also affects the people who have placed their hard-earned money into them. Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to talk about the Chinese economy, what's actually happening, and what should you do from an investor's perspective given everything else that's going on from around the world, from COVID, Russia and Ukraine, inflation, high interest rates, and so much more. And please do note that this is worth watching because China is the second largest economy in the world, and what happens in China will have a ripple effect in different economies. And also, please do note this, that since it's one of the biggest economies in the world, you have funds also from an investment standpoint investing into their economy as well. While all of this is going on, please do note that Chinese factories already have lower sales brought about by the financial woes also globally, and China has the strictest lockdowns in the world, that whenever there are COVID cases in a certain area, they would enforce very, very hard lockdowns. With that also, it hits their local economy and consumption in areas where they would create massive lockdowns. That being said, the entire issue right now is pretty much focused on the Chinese real estate market. For those who don't know, I made a video also last year talking about Evergrande, which already defaulted on its loan obligations. And a lot of people are saying that similar to what happened in 2008 with Lehman Brothers when they defaulted, it was the precursor to the 2008/global crash. And a lot of people are trying to underpin that what happened to Lehman Brothers in the US, Evergrande is its counterpart in 2021, 2022 from a Chinese setting. Evergrande is one of the largest property developers in China. They have about 1,300 projects in 280 cities, which makes them a massive property developer. What I didn't get to mention from last year is that it's not just that it's Evergrande who has a problem. This is something that has been spreading, with about 60 developers owing about $13 billion US. Just to also set a backdrop into all of this, in China compared to other parts around the world, investing in real estate is one of their most preferred investments, primarily because it's considered lower risk. It somehow feels more socially accepted. It somehow makes people feel also that they have reached a higher echelon of society if they also own their own property versus renting. So just some figures. In the Philippines, the percentage of home ownerships are about 60%. In the US, it's about 65% in home ownerships, which is relatively large. Please do notice that in the US, people also value owning their own house. That's the same narrative also here in the Philippines. But in China, that figure is about 89.68%. So what happens in the Chinese real estate market doesn't just affect the developers, but it also affects the people who have placed their hard-earned money into them. And to prove my point further, the real estate market forms about 30% of the GDP of China, 30% of the second largest economy in the world, something that's massively big. For those who don't know what's currently going on, looking at it from an outsider's perspective, it feels like a Ponzi scheme that real estate developers have been pushing for the past few years. It's just that the wheels haven't stopped because there was a lot of free money going around, and a lot of people wanted to buy houses, and a lot of people were also speculating because property prices in China have just blown up over the past decade, and that people were speculating to buy them with the hope that when they buy, even if it's under a loan, they could sell it at a profit still. Just to give you some figures of the home price to income ratio in China versus the US. When I say home price to income ratio, it's the amount of money that people can loan based on their income and based on the property that they're trying to get. So in the US, it's around 4.7 times. In China, it's massive. It's 20x. But if you go to the major cities like Shanghai or Beijing, that figure could go up to 50 times. That actually means that people can loan out a large amount of money for the properties that they're buying, even if their salary is relatively small, versus in other countries, the amount that you can borrow is somehow relatively smaller and closer to what you're actually earning. That makes it a bit scary because if you can borrow a large amount of money and then with a very, very small amount of income, what if something happens and you don't get to pay the loan or the mortgage that you took in your house. Well, anyway, back to what I was talking about. This is how this 9 trillion US dollar slash Ponzi scheme is unraveling in the Chinese market. You have property developers selling properties pre-sale. Now, here's the thing. They would try to build it when it's half done. What they're gonna do is they're gonna ask for more funding. In short, they're gonna try to leverage it. And as they start to leverage it, they're gonna use that money to start another project, which they will also pre-sale. And once they get money from that pre-sale, they will start building it again half, and they will start raising money again to use for another project. So the problem there is, instead of using the money to be able to complete that current project, they're using that money to start another project, thinking that more money will start to come in from those who bought from the pre-sale. They're going to use that to fund the previous project. It seems like a domino that is reliant on each other, that if one falls, people stop paying. It would have a very, very large cascading effect. The property developers were able to do that over a long period of time. It's just that there were a lot of people who could no longer pay. And please do note what was actually happening. People were paying amortizations on properties that were still pre-selling. In the Philippines, the only time you pay for the loan is when the property gets turned over to you, meaning the property's already done, meaning you can already use it, it's already finished. But people were paying for the property already via loan without them even actually using it, without it actually being done. That was how it went in China. 85% of the buildings or the properties were being sold that way. It sort of became something that was just normal. That's all good when times are good. What if bad times happen? What do you do? Okay, they've seen developers not finish the projects. A lot of them have been half done. A lot of them have no chance actually to see completion, and they somehow exceeded specific dates that they wanted to have it come to pass, or at least be finished, or at least be delivered. A lot of people, out of protest, started not paying their properties. It sounds a bit familiar also because that's what happened in 2008 when the US had their property crisis. People who took out loans didn't have the ability to pay out their loans, and they just defaulted. That's what's happening right now to China, but in China, they're doing it in a massive level. A lot of them have defaulted, and a lot of people who have bank accounts, who have savings accounts, aren't even allowed to withdraw their own money. They weren't even allowed to take out the money that they worked hard for in the banks. It were those banks who gave out those loans to people who bought those houses. And when people stop paying those properties, the banks also get hit. And please do note this also, that people who place savings in their banks, the money that they would put in the banks would use to loan it out. As far as I know, China dropped the capital requirements that banks can hold, meaning that they could loan out more money. And the problem there is, when the banks have loaned out money for people to be able to buy these properties, and those who took out loans are not paying in a massive level, then this becomes a serious problem. Coupled by everything that I've mentioned earlier, from the lower sales of their exports, because a lot of people have been buying less globally, all because also of the logistical nightmares that we're actually having, and maybe weaker demand as well, and the massive lockdowns that they have been enforcing in China. While all of this has been going on, household demand has dropped by 16.9%, and real estate sales have fallen by 25%. And these figures have been one of its lowest in China for quite some time already. And with that, while all of this has been happening, consumer demand for China has hit a multi-decade low. Please do note that in China, a large chunk of people's assets are invested in real estate because they conceive this as something that's more conservative, and this is something that they feel as some sort of a social status when you own property. It's about 70% of people's portfolio, or 70% of their worth, or their net worth, or their assets are highly concentrated into real estate. And what is the China government trying to do in order to save this, or in order to salvage this entire situation? From what I've seen in some of the disclosures, is that they're doing a $44 billion bail, which in turn is something that we've seen also happen in US markets during the 2008 crash. But please do note this: every time a government bails out an institution, it just encourages others later on that, oh, it's okay, I could be reckless with my money, with my spending, because if things go bad, maybe the government may also bail me out. That's where we are. I think this is something still that's ongoing. I don't know how big this would be over the next few weeks, months, and years. I don't know what will be the specific ripple effect in businesses that are highly engaged to the Chinese economy, and investment funds that are invested also in the Chinese stock market or to Chinese companies that are highly connected to a lot of the businesses that are there. Please do note also that there have been a couple of Chinese companies that have been delisted in the US markets. There have been also a bit of Chinese companies that have been delisted even in their local stock exchanges. This is a highly fluid situation that's developing and unfolding in front of our very eyes, on top of everything that has been going around the world. High inflation, high interest rates, wars, high US dollar, high oil, and so much more. Again, our goal is to save. Our goal is to invest. We can't control everything that's going on. It's nice to be informed so that it allows us to have a strategy that's in place. But I highly suggest, we can't control all of this, but we can control how we deploy capital. We can control how we try to protect ourselves. We try to control also how we hedge in front of all of this. And that's why Bitcoin, I think, is so amazing, because if a portion of your assets in China were in Bitcoin and they diversified there, should there be any woes in their real estate or in the stock market, somehow they would have an asset class that's diversified and different and not highly reliant on the Chinese economy. So I guess that's it. I hope you learned a lot. If you want to know more about me, the videos that I make, and you want to learn more about the stock market, the crypto market, and everything else in between, everything is down below. And if you find value in the videos that I make, hit the like button, subscribe, and smash the bell so you get updated every time I come up with new content about investing. So that's it for now. Marvin Germo. I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, and God bless you all.